Welcome to our podcast. Today, we are with a true marketing veteran with Silicon Valley startups and Fortune 100 experience. But first and foremost, a brilliant marketing teacher with over 900,000 students and multiple best-selling courses on Udemy, Dekker Fraser. Thank you for joining us today.
Nice to be here.
Awesome. What you say about SaaS industry is the following. As a SaaS company, you either go big or you go back to selling services. Why is that so?
I think a lot of people, when they start out in marketing, they're working for professional service firms, which are basically marketing agencies. So they get the idea that it's all about narrow targeting and getting extremely high prices. But what's fundamentally advantageous about SaaS is that it is scalable. And that's one of the differences between SaaS and what we had before SaaS, which was on-site software. So I think it's meant to be scaled, and the best approach to marketing it is in scalable ways that reach a lot of people, not necessarily super highly targeted approaches.
All right, got that. So you have also an awesome video on YouTube where you explained the main difference between product marketing and service marketing, where you explained that niching down mostly makes sense for services, since you are essentially trying to sell your time for as expensive as possible. So what's the biggest difference that most people do not grasp between service marketing, let's say digital agency, for example, and software as a service marketing?
So sorry, the difference between service marketing and like a software product?
Yeah, and a SaaS marketing, specifically B2B, high ticket software.
Yeah, so it basically gets down to what I was talking about earlier, which is when you're marketing a professional service, essentially you want to get as high a price as possible because your production is limited by how much time that you and your employees have to dedicate to the project. So you want the highest value projects to work on. But when you're marketing something like software, which can be replicated infinitely at effectively zero cost, then it's more about scalable marketing, not necessarily highly targeted, high priced marketing. Now, there are certainly going to be cases when you're selling high ticket enterprise software where maybe 20% of your revenue is actually coming from customization and services that a lot of Fortune 500 companies are going to require. So in cases like that, you're dealing with a hybrid approach, but most SaaS companies, it's really more about going with a lower ticket, scalable product offering because that's fundamentally what it can do is it can scale much easier than a service can.
All right, got that. But when it comes to high ticket enterprise software, is that the case?
High ticket enterprise software would be a little bit different. High ticket enterprise SaaS is certainly going to be more scalable than something like business to business IT or custom development. So you can certainly scale it much more in that case, but you are going to be tilting a little bit more towards the service offering, which again, high enterprise buyers are going to want a service agreement to go with what you're selling.
All right, got that. So it's kind of like a combo where you're providing software, which is kind of like scalable with zero cost. But on the other side, you also provide service with customized support, correct?
That's right. And of course, you're going to have customer success managers and other service offerings that are attached to the software.
Yeah. All right, got that. There's a common belief that in B2B marketing, the biggest enterprise clients mostly come from personal connections or referrals. Do you agree with that statement?
I don't think it's necessary to get customers that way. I don't know what the empirical evidence is, but I would say the bigger you get, the more you cannot just rely on those types of things. You're going to have to find more scalable approaches to your marketing. Jason Lemkin, who is probably the premier expert in business to business enterprise SaaS, talks all the time about cold emails and that even the CEOs of very large companies will pay attention to your cold emails. I'm a big advocate of cold emails, and that really has nothing to do with referrals. But I'm not saying that referrals aren't effective. They certainly are in both product marketing and in service marketing, but how do you scale something like that? It's not easy, and you can only squeeze so much juice out of it.
Yeah, of course, definitely. You have a lot of expertise in B2B paid ads, such as LinkedIn and Facebook. What kind of offers do you see right now dominating on these platforms for lead generation?
So the typical offering is going to be a very bottom of funnel offer, request a demo, sign up for free trial, something like that. Now, one of my arguments is you don't necessarily need to do lead generation, because when we're talking about lead generation offers, usually we're talking about ebooks or buying guides or webinars, things like that. Webinars are definitely effective. I would say that would be one of the leading things that you would want to use to get people in your funnel. But I would also say that you do not need to do lead generation. What you could do is just do reach advertising to generate awareness with your target audience and just keep nurturing them until they request a demo, which is where they would enter your sales funnel. Where lead generation is very effective is when you have a very large group of people and you need to narrow it down to those that are in market. And if you're trying to do that, something like a buyer's guide or something that has a very, very good value in terms of triage ability would be the most effective.
All right. But right now you see mostly dominating bottom of the funnel offers. Am I right?
I would say that's what most companies are promoting,
Yeah.
if we talk about dominating in that sense. In terms of the most effective, I would say perhaps even bypassing lead generation altogether and just elevating awareness and education until somebody raises their hand and says, yes, I want to request a demo or I want to talk to sales.
Yeah. All right. Got that. Got that. So mostly that's free signups, free demos, and basically direct hard CTAs, correct?
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of doing things like direct hard CTAs through things like sales letters, direct mail packages, getting cold email conversations started. But that's just my particular philosophy. That's where I've seen a lot of the success coming in. And in cases like that, you're just sending the message out through like a direct mail package, educating people about what you're offering. You're even paying people to sit down for a demo. You don't really need to do lead generation. What you need to do is build a cold email list or an outreach list.
All right. From your experience, on average, would you say the cost to acquire a customer is usually cheaper in that way?
I would say if you're going with something like enterprise software and the contract values are very high, then you can certainly get a very, very fast return on investment from doing something like a direct mail. And the reason is because you're actually going to get noticed. You're going to bypass all the gatekeepers, rather than something like just having a whole team of people to do cold calls and, you know, nobody's really that interested.
Yeah. All right. All right. Got that. From 2015 to, let's say, around 2020, when COVID kind of hit, paid ads were a massive arbitrage opportunity where you could put $1 in and get 10, 20, or $50 out. And let's say it was a Wild West and very good time for many marketers out there. How do you see paid ads as an opportunity for B2B marketing in 2024?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because when I was thinking about marketing trends, that's what I'm noticing now is there's for SaaS companies in particular are starting to realize that not all marketing is this sort of high return on investment, direct response type of marketing. So I think what happened was historically when we had the big internet bubble burst, a lot of companies had wasted money on things like Super Bowl ads that didn't really pay off. They went too far on the brand marketing side. And I think what we're seeing now is a course correction where, okay, we went a little too far on the direct response, PPC. Let's maximize the ROI of every single marketing asset, and we're starting to move more towards traditional economies of scale marketing, which is things like brand marketing, because when you truly have integrated marketing communications that works effectively, you cannot measure the ROI of every single marketing asset.
And how do you balance between those two as a bootstrapped startup in your early phases?
I generally recommend that when you're small or you're underfunded, you really need to focus on generating revenue this month, this quarter. So you're better off focusing on customers, prospects who are in market, which is typically around only 5% of the target customer group that you're going after. So that means focusing on things like cold email, Google Ads, or lead generation devices that do a very good job of separating people that are out of market from those that may be willing to buy in the next few months.
All right, got that. And how do you see LinkedIn ads, particularly as a B2B marketing channel in 2024?
I'm a big advocate of LinkedIn ads. I would say that it's some of the opportunities are being lost. So message ads were one of the most effective devices, an extremely cheap way of getting to your ICP. Unfortunately, those have been discontinued. And even conversation ads, I believe you cannot use in Europe. So there are certainly limitations. But LinkedIn ads are just extremely effective in terms of great targeting. Now, Facebook ads is another alternative that's great. The problem with Facebook ads is it's a bit complicated getting the targeting right. Whereas with LinkedIn ads, any bootstrap company with minimal budget can immediately start distributing their message to their exact target audience.
All right, got that. And how would you say, how scalable are LinkedIn ads compared to, let's say, Facebook ads?
It's not going to be as scalable as Facebook ads. Now, can you hit your entire total addressable market? Possibly not, because people don't use LinkedIn. Not as many people use LinkedIn, and people don't use LinkedIn as frequently. So generally, I advise at some point or at some size, you're probably going to want to expand to something like Facebook, if for no other reason, just to do retargeting ads, because people open Facebook more often than they do LinkedIn.
All right, but let's say in just mathematically, you can scale on LinkedIn to, let's say, 500 or $1,000 per day in ad budget.
Yeah, and it certainly can be justified as well, because the people that you're able to hit on LinkedIn are going to be the people that can sign $100,000 contracts.
Yeah, and mostly is LinkedIn cost per acquisition more expensive than Facebook from your experience?
It's comparable. So if you look at the research, there's going to be some variation between like the cost per lead, but when you start getting down to deeper funnel metrics like pipeline, customer acquisition costs, it's going to be about the same. The difference, I would say, though, is Facebook ads, especially for business to business, it has a higher upfront investment just to get the targeting right. And sometimes that means you need to build a list or buy a list that you import into Facebook. Whereas LinkedIn is better from there's no fixed investment required. You can basically just start pouring money directly into ads.
All right, got that.
Yes, then I'll take over the question part. I had I have a growing interest when it comes to AI, and I wanted to hear your opinion when it comes to like the rapid changes in marketing because of AI. So how often would you say companies need to, let's say, change or update themselves with new tools and platforms to remain ahead in the marketing sphere?
It really depends on the situation. I would say that, especially for small companies, you can really explode your business overnight by hopping on some sort of trend or exploiting what I call a temporary competitive advantage, which could be artificial intelligence. I would say that AI, from a strategic perspective, has already been extremely effective, especially for large companies for a very long time, using things like cluster analysis to do segmentation, which is a machine learning process that I've used for segmentation. But now I think the big opportunity is going to be with small companies and particularly with a generative AI.
Right. Do you see right now some really good applications of AI for B2B? Because we've been also involved in the space of AI and chatbots for a couple of years already. And mostly what we noticed that AI is mostly applicable to D2C companies where there's a huge market. So do you see some really good applications of chatbots, let's say, for B2B marketing?
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, which is that where AI is strongest is when you have a lot of data and it's a stable environment. So the best example there would be something like Google, which deals with billions of users, or Facebook. But when you're dealing with business to business, that's not always the case. Often you only need one big contract to generate millions of dollars for your business. So AI from a data perspective is going to be limited with business to business. But on the operational side, the production side, it's still very applicable. I think AI is particularly effective where it's strongest right now is generating digital art through tools like Midjourney. I think the chat GPT is great for amplifying the productivity of your copywriting, not necessarily as a standalone tool, but as something that maximizes the productivity of doing things like, for example, SEO for business to business, getting those articles posted in major publications.
Yeah, and that kind of brings back to the point that we asked before, is that B2B still massively relies on personal connection with your partners, with your customers, whereas AI and chatbots mostly come into play when it comes to direct to consumer field.
Yeah, definitely. And I think chatbots and templated emails are examples where business to business companies are trying to apply what they're seeing in the consumer space, and it just doesn't map very well. And prospects end up having this very robotic experience. But I think AI is great for business to business as well. So, for example, I was recently writing an article for TechCrunch, and I wrote the article, but it was very dry. So I just used AI to say, hey, write this in a style that's more like TechCrunch. And it did. It improved my own writing. And there's no reason that it can't for business to business content writers or cold email writers as well.
Yeah, for sure. So we also have a couple of interesting questions about digital marketing agencies. So what do you see is the future of digital marketing agencies right now?
Well, I think one of the biggest trends that's been happening is the management consulting firms moving in on the digital marketing agency space and acquiring some of those businesses. So you're going to start to see this blurring line between what is a management consultancy and what is a digital agency. I think that's one of the trends we're going to see. But I think the market dynamics when you're an agency is that you're always going to have tons of different agencies, varying sizes and different specialties, and the direction they go is going to deviate from the direction of other agencies, and there's always going to be demand for it. Of course, AI is going to be one of the biggest changes that we're going to see in that space.
All right. So one of the trends that we recently noticed and checked on the market research is that more brands, especially enterprise clients, are more willing to take the knowledge and expertise of agencies in-house. And hence to that, many agencies are kind of pivoting into this done with you or do-it-yourself model. Do you notice this as well?
So I have colleagues at some of the top management consulting firms who do strategy consulting for the biggest companies in the world. And that's the trend we're seeing there in terms of, done for you. They want agencies that are more involved in the execution, not just providing, oh, here's a presentation. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that and more expectation from agencies in that regard.
All right. And interesting question. If you were starting a digital marketing agency in 2024 from scratch, and you have to pick only one channel to advertise and get clients, what would that channel be for you?
LinkedIn is the first thing that pops into my mind. I think LinkedIn's incredible.
LinkedIn organic or LinkedIn paid ads?
I think paid ads is the easiest to do. And maybe some sort of paid esque types of organic. So like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, LinkedIn Premium, things that amplify your effectiveness on the organic side.
All right.
But yeah, it's still more towards paid. It's more scalable. It's easier.
All right. Got that.
Then
I
besides
also
AI, oh, no.
I just want to add a point there. I would say where I'm most focused for 2024 though is Reddit ads. I think that's a big opportunity, especially as Reddit starts to go public. But please continue.
All right.
Yeah, interesting. So besides, let's say AI and Reddit ads, what emerging like market trends or strategies do you believe would significantly impact startups and digital agencies in like the coming year or the coming years?
I think we're seeing a resurgence of direct mail because people's inboxes are getting crowded and people aren't really paying attention. I think the barrier to entry is so low for some digital marketing channels that people are going to start to switch to things that are more attention grabbing. And it's not just going to be direct mail, but it's also going to be things like awareness advertising. So earlier, your colleague talked about arbitrage opportunities, right? Which is where you're paying $1 and getting $500 in sales. I think the arbitrage opportunity today, especially in business to business, is paying on a CPM basis or cost per view basis rather than paying on a cost per click basis. Because a lot of your competitors aren't doing that. They're trying to extract maximum value out of every click rather than maximizing views and awareness.
All right. And
Interesting.
what platforms do you see right now are the most suitable for this type of bidding?
I think Facebook's very good at it. I'm always questioning whether Facebook or YouTube is better, and the data are not that reliable. But I think the biggest short-term opportunity right now is really Reddit ads. And I say that both from an awareness perspective and from a cost per click perspective, because Reddit ads right now is like Google maybe 15 years ago. I mean, I'm paying less than $1 per click, and I'm getting extremely good targeting with based on keywords. It's really an incredible short-term gold mine.
All right. And as a direct response marketer, I instantly have a question. Is there a good conversion tracking in place for Reddit ads?
I'm not spending a lot of time tracking deep conversion metrics yet on Reddit ads. So I'm not sure. That's something that we would definitely have to test out, and I'd love to publish the research if we can get working on that.
All right. Yeah, that would definitely be interesting. Because yeah, the main question for everybody is mostly conversion tracking right now, to find something similar to Facebook where you could track all the events and scale those ads. So is it right now the case for Reddit?
I think you could definitely be very effective. And I think one of the reasons is because what you can do on Reddit, you cannot do on Facebook. So Reddit is kind of like Facebook and Google combined, but at pre 10 years ago Google prices. So, I mean, maybe I'm a little too optimistic about this right now, but the data that I've been seeing early on, it looks really incredible. So I really wouldn't be surprised if conversion metrics are extraordinary as well. But the reason I can't answer your question directly is because I'm much more focused on hitting the TAM and hitting everyone rather than just sort of optimizing every little conversion. And that's just the nature of what I'm doing right now.
All right, got that. So marketing legend Dan Kennedy is a big advocate of LTV. And he said, there is no strategic advantage of being the cheapest player in the market, but there is a strategic advantage of being the most expensive one. Do you believe is the case for marketing success in most businesses?
I think Dan Kennedy comes from I'm very familiar with Dan Kennedy. His worldview, it works when you're dealing with high ticket offers, which is what a lot of marketing gurus deal with, and I think a lot of small businesses as well. It's much easier to grow a high revenue business based on high ticket offers. And, Dan Kennedy, Alex Hormozi, ClickFunnels CEO, all of them are kind of in the same lineage, and that's what they'll advocate. And yeah, it works, but you can also do marketing selling less than $3 purchases. And I've done that and it worked. I've also done high ticket offers. Both can work.
Yeah, of course. You just have to understand the playground where you are playing and choose the right tactics and the right approach, as you often say.
Yeah, and I think one of the best piece of advice is from Dan Kennedy is with respect to lead magnets. And he's talking about how when you send out a lead magnet and you get responses, that's a group of people you need to nurture for months. You can't just try to force them into a demo request right away. There's going to be a nurturing process there. And if you do Dan Kennedy style marketing properly, you need to have some patience to really get the goal.
Yeah, and lead nurture is the process that so many marketers overlook. What we noticed, that everyone is focused on lead magnets, on getting as many leads, but many people overlook the lead nurture indeed.
Definitely. And they'll benefit a lot from following. I mean, Dan Kennedy coined the phrase lead magnet. If you follow his advice, you'll be much more effective as a direct response marketer.
All right. So that brings us to the next question. What are the lead magnets that you see right now performing, let's say dominating on paid ads in 2023?
Trying to think, I haven't really done a lot of the lead magnet marketing recently. It's always been fairly easy for me to increase the lead count by using things like research reports or webinars. But I think case studies, I would say if you had to go with one lead magnet, that'd be very effective, because case studies do an excellent job of proving that you can achieve an outcome and attracting the people that are interested in achieving that outcome, which means you're separating the people that are probably going to buy from you from the people that won't. And it doesn't necessarily mean they need to fill out a lead form to get access to the case study, but you could, for example, build a retargeting funnel around who clicked it or who watched 50% of the video, things like that.
All right, got that.
Interesting. And then what KPIs do you prioritize when measuring like the success of, let's say, marketing campaigns or like retargeting campaigns for digital agencies or startups?
Well, it really depends on the situation, but if you want a simplified answer, especially business to business, it's going to be pipeline revenue. Or another way of phrasing it is the number of sales qualified opportunities. So these are prospects that have met with a salesperson and they have a high probability of making a purchase within the next 3 months. And that would be the gold standard from a business perspective. I would say in terms of business to consumer, you're looking at revenue, you're looking at customer acquisition cost. But when people talk about these KPIs, these are all short-term KPIs that really only deal with around 5% of the market, which might be the only thing that a small company needs to focus on. But as you get bigger, you need to focus on the other 95%, which means things like brand awareness within context. So when people think of, oh, I got hit with a virus attack, what's the first brand that pops in your mind? Or we need an agency to deal with this emergency that's come up. Okay, are they thinking of this brand name? And those KPIs are much harder to track.
All right.
So if you want to scale, then KPIs of that sort would be much more, I guess, important to work on.
Yeah, the KPIs are going to get much looser and more difficult, more psychological.
All right. So really broad question. As a bootstrapped small business, let's say, who's like below 7 figures, how do you actually in practice do the brand awareness campaigns?
So when you're a tiny business, you can certainly start investing in brand awareness campaigns, and it's not that expensive. You could just run video ads, say $5 a day on YouTube or on Facebook. LinkedIn might be a bit more expensive, but you can do it there as well. And also keep in mind that when you do something like direct mail or cold email, the main goal is to get the meeting, to get this and effectively the sale, get the conversation going, but you are generating awareness and product education through that.
All right. Would you recommend to do that for, let's say, small businesses to do the brand awareness campaigns?
Not generally, because usually you're still trying to find product market fit. You're still doing rapid experiments. I would say once you have a very solid idea, this is the space I want to own. So for example, me, I want to be known as one of the top marketing gurus, and I've been doing that for years. I am going to do that for years in the future. So I'm investing in brand awareness as a small business. But if you're still kind of trying to find your way, which a lot of SaaS companies have done, a lot of startups have done, then no, brand awareness is not the way to go.
All right, got that. And with rapidly increasing customer acquisition costs and seeing that paid ads are becoming less and less effective, do you see that the value of brand is rapidly increasing?
Yeah, I think a lot of marketers have been sort of getting away with this, what you described as an arbitrage opportunity, where you were able to have profitable clicks. You're able to pay, $30 per click and get a $30 or, a $20 sale or something like that. But in the real world, with more mature industries, that's not what happens. When Procter and Gamble sells $1 for a toothpaste tube, they're not paying $1 per click. That's not how they're even thinking about it. But it'll always work with high ticket offers. You can always do that kind of expensive marketing. But yeah, as you start to get more competitive and as you start to scale up, you have to get to brand marketing. And even Jason Lemkin will tell you this as well. In the beginning, okay, yeah, you focus on things like cold email, direct response, but as you get bigger, ultimately it's going to come down to brand, because it doesn't really matter how different your product is from competitors. At the end of the day, it's the well-known brand that wins.
All right. And how do you make this transition from being a direct response marketer who focuses on conversion events and making every click as profitable as possible into the branding field?
I think just make sure you separate your budget and make it very clear what's going to be tracked based on short-term behavioral metrics like revenue, and what's either not going to be tracked at all because it's too expensive to track, or is going to be tracked with things like brand awareness. And I recommend reading How Brands Go by Byron Sharp. That's a good way to get started in that space. I wish I had read that book before I did large scale marketing. It would have helped me understand things a lot better.
All right, awesome. Have you read Marketing Warfare by L. Rice?
I haven't, no.
All right, got that. So yeah, Rudolph, do you have any more questions?
I had a question, or no, not really a question, more like an interest about your time at PlayStation. How's that like your starting position and your growth there, and like what were the main challenges like when it comes to like marketing or getting your ideas through to the companies, like upper management and stuff like that?
Working at PlayStation was a big eye opener for me because it kind of related to the point I was making earlier. You start to realize that going with the very targeted marketing, which is what most marketers are trained to do with conventional textbooks, it doesn't work if that group just isn't big enough. So PlayStation sort of helped me understand, okay, it's the financial goal is much more important than who the target buyer is. And the other big lesson I got from PlayStation was the importance of politics. And the internal politics of an organization are often the biggest challenge. And especially for people working in agencies, they don't really understand how decisions get made, especially in big companies. it's not always the best decision or the most logical one or the most profitable one. It's the one that's the most politically sellable. And that's what prevails in large companies.
I
All
see.
right.
And if we're, let's say, like working with like a bigger company, how should we like go through with the, let's say, the sales process, or let's say marketing our product to them, so like a positive outcome for both of us would actually happen?
I think when you're marketing large companies, you need to understand that the bigger the company gets, the less perhaps personal association there is between the manager and the entity. So what's in the best interest of the manager? If you keep talking about what's in the best interest of the company, it's going to resonate less and less with somebody at a large company and more with somebody like an entrepreneur. So decoupling that and sort of figuring out, well, what does that individual manager want? Maybe they want to go on a vacation to the Bahamas, or maybe you just need to pay them for their time and their input, or maybe they'd rather receive a gift box from you. And they also don't want to be embarrassed in front of their boss, so they might just go with a credible brand name rather than an unknown, and they want a low risk buying opportunity.
Got it.
All right. So yeah, Rudolph brought a really good question about your experience at PlayStation, and you definitely have a really inspiring career in marketing, and many people are looking up to you as a marketing expert. And that brings us to the next question. What are the key takeaways that you learned from working with startups?
I think one of the biggest mistakes I made, because I started out working for a small company, was I spent a lot of time doing things that were not directly tied to revenue and sales. And things like content marketing, publishing a lot of blog posts. And there's nothing wrong with doing those things. The problem is it just takes a lot of time. And I would say SEO kind of fits in that space as well. So I'm investing a lot of time in SEO right now because I'm focused on the long term. I have enough money in the short term. It doesn't really matter to me, how much revenue I get next month. But generally, in a small company, do what will tie to revenue immediately, and often that's boring things like cold email or lead magnets that you may not get a lot of submissions for. The vanity metrics are not going to be very high, but you're going to get responses for people that are actually interested in buying. They actually have the problem that you solve, and you're going to be able to get them into a sales conversation. And sometimes the way you do that in the beginning is going to be just sort of manually talking to people one by one. It's not going to be scalable. You can't use AI chatbots to do it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. If people want to work with you or get consulting, where can they find you?
I highly recommend checking out my Udemy courses. That's the best place to start. It's also the cheapest place to start. I do offer consulting ad hoc to people that request it. It's not a big part of my business, but I do enjoy doing it. So you can just contact me on LinkedIn through there, or you can check out dekker.page.
All right, awesome. Okay, so we can right now transition to sort of like more random and personal questions. So there's an old saying that truly great, exceptional products don't need marketing. Could that statement be true to some degree?
They don't need marketing. I think when you have a really great product that is highly differentiated in a way that really matters to customers, you don't need to do high frequency marketing because you could just get the message out once to everyone and you're going to get a lot of people responding. But no, you definitely need to do marketing. It's not the best products that win, it's the most well-known products that win.
All right. But when it comes to truly exceptional products, let's just speak in theory. If, let's say, you invented the cure for cancer, in theory, do you still need to market your product?
No, I mean, there's definitely cases where you're not going to do any very minimal marketing. You have a monopoly. So in a case like that, if you're the only one that has the cure for cancer, if you're the only one that's offers electricity in your city, you don't really need to focus on customer acquisition. They'll come to you.
All right, got that. As we understood, you're right now in the Philippines. So what particularly do you like about the place, and why have you decided to move to Philippines?
The Philippines is great. It's affordable. The people are incredibly nice. The weather's great. People speak English, and there's just a really great warmth to the environment here and how people treat you.
Right. Are you all the time in the Philippines, or are you sometimes coming back and visiting the West?
Yeah, I travel a lot. So I was recently in Hong Kong. I was in Korea. I go to Canada a lot. I've worked in the US for years. Hoping to go to Switzerland perhaps sometime next year. I'm all over the place.
All right. What's your favorite country for now?
My favorite country to visit is Japan, and I would say my favorite country overall would be Singapore. I think Singapore has done an excellent job of things like keeping crime down, being very efficient with their taxes, things like that.
Okay, interesting. And one more question to finish with. It's kind of borrowed from Tim Ferriss' show, and that's the question that he always asked at the end of each podcast. If you had an opportunity to place a billboard in New York City center in the most crowded street, what would that billboard say?
Probably something about if you want to get better at marketing, check out Dekker's courses on Udemy. There's some simplified way of saying that.
All right, awesome. That's always the best option. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. And yeah, for listeners, if you didn't get value from it, you were definitely not listening close enough, because Dekker brought a lot of insights and interesting knowledge on all of the topics that we covered. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, and yeah, happy end of 2023.